And welcome back to another episode of the Still Curtain Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Jaggi, editor of StillCurtain.com. And joining me, as always, is co-host, copy editor for Fansided, Shayne Kubas. Shayne, we're going to talk about the NFL Combine coming up here. And by the time we record next week's show, we're going to have a ton to talk about in terms of all the positional group, the testing, the weigh-ins, all that kind of stuff, which prospects might move up and down the board. But today, I want to talk specifically, our big topic for today, Omar Khan's comments.
Yeah.
And on stillcurtain.com, you can go over there and check it out. We've broken down his comments from just about every single angle. So if you want to get those exact quotes, make sure you go over to stillcurtain.com. Check out all that we had to say over there on a range of topics that Omar Khan was asked about during his NFL Combine presser. But we're going to get to those today, Shayne. I want to ask you your thoughts, and I think there are some reasons to be concerned. If you're a Steelers fan with hope for the future, you're probably not going to love some of the things that Khan had to say. We will get to that in the middle of today's show. We will sign off today's show, Shayne, by talking about the NFL draft, which I'm so excited to dive into these next few months. Daniel Jeremiah's big board that he updated just recently here. And we're each, Shayne, going to make our way too early first round prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So make sure you stay with us for that. But let's start with the news today. NFL Combine Week. As we record this show, no drills yet, Shayne, but players are in attendance in Indianapolis for the Combine. We're already hearing about all the formal visits coming out for the Steelers, at least for the linebackers, defensive line. We'll talk about some of those as well. But what are you excited about overall this time of year? Do you get excited for the Combine, Shayne?
I do. Like, even if, admittedly, as someone who's dove into scouting a lot more the past couple of years, it is something that weighs less more and more for me, where as far as how these guys test and all this stuff, because a lot of it is, you know, them training for it and they're trying to look as good as they can. It might not reflect who they are on the field, but some testing does really matter for some positions, like edge especially, and things of that nature. So you want to see how those guys perform. And honestly, like, seeing these guys compete in anything, even if it's not real football, it is nice when we haven't had football for quite some time. So I do generally enjoy the Combine. So
yeah, cornerback's another one. Testing does matter.
Sure,
you can't have slow corners, which the Steelers have learned firsthand in recent years. They might draft 2 players or so in the secondary. You got 12 selections right now. Maybe they'll end up with 9 after a few trades. We'll see what happens. But I think they're going to draft at least 2 players in the secondary, maybe a corner or safety. So keep an eye on those positional groups as well. That'll come later. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show here today, Shayne. So stay with us if you are watching for that. Let's talk about CBS Sports list Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals quarterback, as a potential fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers in a trade, Shayne, that could be coming this offseason. A Kyler trade, not necessarily to the Steelers. Several other teams were listed as well. It makes sense because the Steelers need a quarterback, but does it make sense beyond that? That's what I would question. Mike McCarthy offense. He likes quarterbacks that can operate from the pocket in timing, accuracy over the middle of the field. Is that Kyler? I don't know if that really fits the description of what we've seen from Kyler over the year. He's 28 years old, going to be 29 before the start of the season. That's not old by quarterback standards at all, but he's got some pretty sizable cap numbers here too. 2026, Shayne, the acquiring team would still need to pay $41.9 million for Kyler Murray to be on the roster. 36.8 of that would be guaranteed. This is from Spot Rack. In 2027, he's cap number of $36.3 million. And then 2028, the final year of his deal, a cap hit of $46.35 million for the team, potentially receiving Kyler in a trade. Now, I think the best part of this is if you were to trade for Kyler, he should come really cheap. We're talking about like a day 2 selection here because the contract isn't great and because everybody knows the Cardinals want to unload him. Shayne, do you have any interest at all in a deal for Kyler Murray?
I think there are teams that should have interest in him because we've seen him in the past play at a near MVP level. Like, this is a really good player, just one who's very specific in the way that he needs to win and to play. So I think you have to go to an offense that either is good fit for what he does or is willing to adapt to what he does. I don't think that would be in Pittsburgh. You talked about what Mike McCarthy wants in a quarterback. Kind of everything that Kyler is exactly the opposite of that. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad player. It just means he would be a bad fit, right? And it's easy just to say, well, the Steelers need a quarterback. He's technically one of the best available if you're talking about like past success and what he's shown to be able to do. Why not? It just wouldn't be a really good stylistic fit.
I agree. I don't think that it's a great fit in McCarthy's offense. Now, maybe if you go back like 2 years ago in that brief window of time where Tomlin suddenly valued like quarterback mobility at like a really high level and then kind of went away from that with a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, that might have been a fit. I just don't see it now. For as much as the Steelers are going to want to operate McCarthy's style of offense with timing and accuracy, I think there's so many quarterbacks that fit better than that. We can talk about other trade candidates. Mac Jones is a name that's floated out there. I'm not thrilled with that either.
No.
But there are other stylistic fits, though, better than Kyler for the Steelers. I don't doubt that he's going to get traded. I think the trade is the most likely solution. Somebody's going to give up something for him, I think, at this point. I think that even in terms of like average annual salary, it's still a reasonable contract if you can get like the Pro Bowl level performance out of him, which I'm not sure if you're able to do at this stage of his career. Something that was floated out there, anyone I thought that we would talk about it on today's show very briefly. Let's talk about another quarterback, Shayne, who is drawing more buzz right now, free agent Malik Willis. And this is just so wild to me. I talked about this with Marcus Mosher on Stacking the Box just the other day. Willis, though, 6 career starts, Shayne, and his contract projection is through the roof. So according to NFL insider Jordan Schultz, he said, teams I've spoken to at the Combine in Indianapolis believe he's getting at least $30 million per year is a foregone conclusion. And this would fall in line kind of with the projections we've seen. I know Pro Football Focus has him at $20 million a year, but Spot Rack has him at $35.5 million per year. So 30 is kind of what we're expecting, but it's just an astronomical number for a quarterback that has played so little and is 3-3 in his first 4 NFL seasons, Shayne.
This is such an interesting conversation because the lack of quarterback availability and the lack of options in the draft is definitely a factor here. Like it's a big reason why he's going to get as big of a deal as he's going to get. And as much as I would love a player like him to be had for cheaper, because I do think there is a lot of risk here, I will say I would have no problem giving him a 2-year, $60 million contract. I just simply wouldn't, because what he showed with the Packers in his few starts that he played there, he had more positive moments and positive traits on display than anything Justin Fields has ever shown, who got $20 million a year in free agency. Is more positive traits than Daniel Jones ever showed, in my opinion, including with the Colts last year even. And he got 4 years, $160 million from the Giants at one point. There are more like translatable traits and things that he showed in those few games than a lot of guys who paid more money than he's going to get paid have shown in their careers. I think it's a risk that some team is going to be willing to take. And I wouldn't hate it if it was the Steelers, frankly, because what do they really have to lose? If he has a huge season, if he does hit the upside that he showed, awesome. We don't have to worry about quarterback for a while. If he's bad, you're bad. And that means you can get a better quarterback maybe in the draft. Like there just isn't a lot of downside, I think, for some of the teams that are looking at him, especially.
Yeah, in terms of options that go this offseason, at least, it's like, do you want to go with an old Aaron Rodgers? Do you want to overdraft a quarterback that doesn't deserve to go in the first round? Or do you want to potentially overpay Malik Willis? And I think that that's definitely the best option of the group, especially when you talk about like a Kyler Murray trade or something.
Yeah, because
you don't have to give draft capital. It's just money, and you can potentially kind of structure this contract in a way that you can get out of it if need be. Put your guarantees up front, cut him after the first year if it doesn't work out well for you. But I think the big concern here is 6 career starts in 4 years.
Yeah.
And he's got a 500 record as a starter. I don't disagree with you. I do think the flashes, what we've seen from Malik Willis, have been better than anything from the quarterbacks that you just mentioned. The problem is that sample is so small.
It's very small. Yeah.
I mean, he had 35 pass attempts last year, and he's suddenly going to get this massive contract. I understand why. Don't get me wrong. I totally, the market is just obliterated for quarterbacks. And he's the only promising prospect out there. But man, that it does seem like such a steep deal when you consider, Shayne, Sam Darnold was coming off a season in which he had 35 touchdown passes, 4,300 yards, had one of the highest passer ratings in the league, and led the Vikings to a 14-3 record. All of that to get $33 million per year. And we're talking about Willis in the same range as that. That one season paralleled any one season statistically that Ben Roethlisberger ever had in his career. So that's the difference between the two.
And the thing I'll say with that, like, I totally agree with you. I do think that Sam was underpaid in free agency. Like, that's the first thing. Like, he did not get as much money as he should have gotten. He should have at least gotten that $40 million around a year range, roughly, even if it was for, again, 2 or 3 years, like he did with Seattle. But I think there's two things going against Sam that aren't going against Malik. One is that he was coming off of his 2 worst performances as a Viking, and a lot of the concerns with Sam showed up again in those big moments, and I think scared some teams off. And 2, Malik has the benefit of not having enough of a sample size to prove he can't play, versus Sam, who had a lot of evidence he couldn't play before the Vikings year, right? Yeah. That's actually, I think, worked against Sam, and I think it's working for Malik. Is like, I mean, his worst play came with a Titans team that was bad, and he was a rookie for the most part in those starts, and he wasn't ready to play. Like, of course he was bad. Now it's like, oh, you see him recently, he looks like a whole new man. And he does, and I think that there's truth to that. But I do think that's why he's going to get the deal he gets, because there isn't as much negative about him too.
Yeah, no, and obviously I get that. There's plenty of hope for Malik Willis. Has the mobility, has the big arm, looked very promising, had a passer rating, over 112 each of his last 3 seasons, albeit really small sample size. And he's young still. And so at least in terms of options go this offseason, the best on the market. And it's why he's going to get paid as such. All right, you are tuned into the Still Curtain podcast, where Steelers fans come to talk, celebrate, and debate. For more coverage, hit up stillcurtain.com, powered by the passionate fans at Fansided. We broke down Omar Khan's comments from every which angle. You can go check them out in detail with all the full quotes over there. But we're going to talk about them now on today's show, Shayne, and we're going to share our opinions on each of the major topics that were addressed, that Khan addressed with the media, which he was asked about. Let's start with his comments on Aaron Rodgers. And Shayne, you're already giving me the big sigh here. Yeah. I want to do the same exact stinking thing, because why? And we said this last offseason, but especially now, why are you letting a 42-year-old quarterback dictate the future of your team for the 2026 season? You cannot have him leave you hanging like this. It's just, he's not a good enough player to do that over. And we saw it last year. If you look at the raw numbers, you could argue he was fine. He was respectable. When you look at advanced statistics, he was not good. His average depth of target, average completion distance, his EPA per play, like all these things showed that he was a middling quarterback at the absolute best. I think he was a low-end starter last year compared to the rest of the league. His difficulty of assignment was very easy when you're swinging the ball out to Kenneth Gainwell 73 times and letting him do work after the catch. Like, he didn't have to do that much. He didn't have to do much from the pocket. The ball escaped his hands faster than any quarterback that had at least 250 snaps last year. I think we're way overblowing the fans that think Rodgers was really good over here. I think are really overblowing it, and they're overlooking what the film suggested. I can't believe that Omar Khan is sitting here today in February at the NFL Combine and saying that, yeah, we are holding out hope that Aaron Rodgers is going to be our quarterback, essentially. Not those words. I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but it very much sounds like the Steelers are going to let Rodgers decide the team's fate instead of letting them dictate their own fate.
Yeah, we've been saying this for a while now, ever since, the comments about they're interested in him returning for surface. It sounds like he's the one in the power position here. Like, he gets to decide whether he wants to play quarterback for them. And that's just, I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous. You already touched on why he wasn't good enough last year to justify this. And I understand, like, the offense should be better constructed next year because McCarthy is now the head coach, and he is going to be a better play caller than Arthur Smith, and they should focus on the offense more this offseason because of that. But I don't really know if it matters how good the offense is, because you simply just can't win on offense playing the type of quarterback that Aaron Rodgers has to play at this point. at soon to be 43 years old. Like, that's just, you can't get around that at his age. You can't. And for them to kind of bank on him being the starter seemingly, or at least, plan for that to be the case, it's ridiculous, especially if they give him any amount of time, like close to free agency, because they need to have a plan in place if they really do want to compete this year. That's what they said they want to do. It's why they hired McCarthy, seemingly. You can't have Aaron Rodgers be your only plan at quarterback again, like they did last year.
Yeah, no, you cannot. I know we've talked about this on this show, but because we're on the topic right now, last year, Aaron Rodgers, among quarterbacks with at least 100 snaps, which is not very many. You're talking about
a lot of
few
guys
starts.
A lot of guys.
No, you're like two or three starts. He was 23rd in EPA, 35th in success rate, 42nd in average depth of target, 43rd in longest time to throw, which was actually the shortest time to throw, which is really, really bad. You don't want to get rid of the ball that fast because you have zero upside in playmaking ability.
There's a balance.
2.46 seconds. 31st in yards per attempt, 41st in intended air yards, 42nd in completed air yards, 29th in bad throw percentage, 27th in on-target throw percentage, and 23rd in QBR with a 44.3. He was a low-level starter, and all of the advanced stats indicate that, including his PFF grade too, where he graded out right close to Bryce Young and some Joe Flacco, some really underwhelming names on the list. And that's what we see on film. You go back and watch all 22, you can see all of his shortcomings, especially from like a mobility standpoint. And it's not going to get better in his age 43 season. It is not going to get better. No. So that was definitely a concerning remark, I think, from Omar Khan. And he kind of right off the bat there, we weren't surprised to hear media members ask him right away, what about Aaron Rodgers? What's the situation? Sticking along the quarterback topic here, Shayne, Khan addressed the future of the quarterback position. He also talked about Will Howard, said that he is high on Will Howard, admitted that, I mean, there's maybe potential for the Steelers to give him a look. However, he was very clear, and I think he might have said this a few times even, that he is looking for the long-term franchise quarterback, a guy that can be the 10 to 15-year quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, whether he thinks Howard can be that guy, I kind of doubt it. And the reason why I say that, Shayne, is I don't think you take Y.A. Black if you think that's the case. I don't think you take Caleb Johnson if you think that's the case. If you really liked him that much, and maybe he liked his love for Howard grew watching his practice tape. He alluded to watching his practice tape and what he saw from him in the practice facility. But I kind of doubt that that's the direction the team wants to go. There's no doubt Will Howard's going to be part of this roster, and maybe he will be given a chance. But it really seemed to point to Khan wanting to take his own swing at some point in the NFL draft and find that long-term starting quarterback for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what he was alluding to. And I think when he was asked about this specifically, he did bring up like, oh, we want Rodgers back in the building. But what we really need to look for is that 10 to 15-year guy. And that's what they're searching for. And I think obviously anybody who's in a position the Steelers are in where you're asking a 43-year-old quarterback to play for you, not ideal. I think Omar Khan even knows that, even if he is a little bit more maybe delusional about what Aaron Rodgers brings than some of us are. He understands that he's not obviously the future. I think the Will Howard of it all is something that at this point, I'll be honest, I think it's irresponsible for Omar Khan to keep, and for these guys to keep bringing up a 6th-round quarterback's name in all these conversations. Because I think, honestly, it might just do more damage to Will Howard than anything, because his expectations are going to keep going up. When realistically, if he's a backup for you for a long time, that's a huge win with a 6th-round pick. Like, if he's never more than that, that's fine. Like, if he does get a chance, then obviously the conversations around him will seem a lot less strange and I think a lot more reasonable. But I do think the fact to keep bringing his name up means that they at least have some interest in getting him on the field at some point.
Yeah, we have got to pump the brakes on Will Howard a little bit. I think we get ahead of our skis here with a guy that was, again, we're talking about
for his own sake, really. Like, it's just,
it really is. And I kind of feel bad for him in a sense because, yes, you were a national championship quarterback. You had some good numbers at Ohio State. You've got some things to work with, the frame and everything that way. But the expectations are just through the roof. And that's not reasonable to expect of any 6th-round pick around the league, regardless of position, let alone quarterback, which is the hardest position to play in football. Like you said, if he ends up being a quality backup for the Steelers, you've more than
that's awesome.
paid dividends on this draft pick here. Like even going back to like Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph was a success as a 3rd round pick because it was a 3rd round pick. You got a long time quality backup who can come in a pinch. I wouldn't want it really much higher draft capital than that for a backup.
Yeah.
But you got your money's worth out of the Rudolph selection, and you're hoping to do the same with Howard, especially being a 6th round pick. If he can be a backup, that's great. But I do think, based on just the overall feel and kind of gauge, you watch the video and you see him and the body language and everything as he's making these comments. I don't think that he believes that Will Howard is the franchise quarterback. I think that he likes Howard. I have no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. But I think that he is still wanting to take a much higher end swing or one much earlier in the draft potentially. And the question is, does that come this year? Does it come next year? When are you going to do something like that? And Shane, you and I can argue until we're blue in the face with Steelers fans that there's not a good enough prospect to take that swing this year, but we'll have lots of time to talk about that in the coming weeks as well.
No, yeah, for sure. I agree. I think he definitely doesn't think that Will Howard is the franchise quarterback right now. I think part of him and maybe even part of Mike McCarthy kind of wants Aaron to not come back just so they have an excuse to play him. Honestly, I'm growing into that idea of maybe it's just me being a conspiracy theorist a little bit, but I think that they know that Aaron, outside of bringing in a Malik Willis, which has a lot of risk involved, or signing another veteran, he would technically give them the best chance to compete next year, and that's what they're supposed to be doing. But I think deep down they kind of want to I wonder, maybe we can just get through the season with this guy and just find a guy next year. I wonder if that's in the back of their mind a little bit. So.
Well, Shane, and there's a large group of the fan base, and I would probably include myself in that you can say, is it the worst thing in the world to play Will Howard this season? You either find out that he's something, and I think there's a small percent chance that he is
small chance, but it exists, I think.
But the worst case scenario here is you do have a bad season.
Yeah,
you
do have 6 games, record. And
you win 4 to 6 games. You get a top 6 pick in the draft, and you are in a much better position to take a huge quarterback swing the following year. Now, are we guaranteed to have great prospects? No. But you never are. However, the last time the Steelers had a losing record, they went 6-10. They drafted Ben Roethlisberger the following year, and then they were sitting on top of the world for a long time after that. Yeah. So a lot of times, in order to take 2 steps forward, you need to take 1 step back. I think we've been there for the Steelers for years and years now, since 2018. That's pretty been the feel for this team. Let's talk about his next big talking point here. And Shane, something that's been in the back of my mind, and we've written about it multiple times, Broderick Jones. Yeah. Where is his health? And I feel like we've addressed that. I haven't seen a lot of other media outlets address that before, just recently in Khan's comments, but it's all about, is Broderick Jones going to get the 5th-year option? Is he going to get a contract extension? Is he going to be the long-term tackle? Those are all fair questions, but I want to know about his health specifically because he had a season-ending neck injury, and we know how serious neck injuries can be.
Yeah, it's scary.
Is there fusion that has to take place there? What do you have to do to get right again? Are you going to have full range of motion with your neck? Because it's kind of important to turn your head a little bit as an offensive tackle. Apparently, based on Khan's comments, Broderick is nowhere near ready to hit the field again. And the hope is, Shane, that Broderick can be ready by training camp. We're talking months and months from now to even be ready to see the field for practice again. This is beyond concerning to me. And it makes me wonder, what is his career, not just with the Steelers, but in the NFL in general? Can he get 100%? Can he make 100% recovery from this neck injury that he suffered late in the season? Can he be the same player again? And to be fair, that player that we saw before the neck injury, I don't know if it's a player that you would want to gamble on long-term. He still had a lot of growing to do, a lot of things to improve on. So now you talked about muddy waters already. It's really murky, the future of Broderick Jones in Pittsburgh. I don't think there's any way the Steelers can justify picking up that 5th-year option in May. How do you see this all playing out with him, Shane?
It's obviously really unfortunate anytime something like this happens. And we've seen, obviously the Ryan Shazier situation is the most jarring one of them and the one that hits home most for Steelers fans. But anytime a neck injury is going on, like it is just scary, like you said. Like it's something that is really hard to know what's going on with it and how that's going to work. And when it comes to Broderick, like you said, the way that he talked about it, I don't necessarily want to assume that it means he is at risk of not playing again, but whatever it is something that he has a long way to go with still. And, we're months since this originally happened. So it's definitely not good to hear that, even if, again, we're not the biggest fans of his game at this point, and maybe he wasn't going to be the starter regardless. He's probably going to be in a competition anyway with either Dylan Cook or whoever they might bring in as well. But it sucks if this is why he can't play or why he doesn't play is because of this and not because he just can't play.
100%. And anytime we want to be really sensitive anytime we talk about this, because the player's health comes first, their health of their long-term future, they got a life ahead of them. So as critical as we've been of Broderick in the past, we hope him nothing.
Yeah, it's just as his play on the field. Like it's not about him as a
exactly.
person or like we have to be objective about his play on the field. But like I would rather obviously him be awesome and be healthy, obviously too. Yep. Like that would be much better for himself and for the Steelers. And like that's just the reality. But it does seem like he might not have a chance to even really get back out there to prove he can be a left tackle. So
it does seem that way. And this was the first ever draft pick from Omar Khan as the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we know that he wanted to give him every chance to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe, and I wonder what is going through Khan's head too. It's like, does he agree with the decisions that Tomlin made with Broderick in the past?
I don't know.
Left tackle, right tackle, left tackle again. Like, I wonder if he had higher hopes for Jones and still believes in Jones. But I'll give you a more recent injury example, Shayne, of a neck injury and kind of maybe different situation here in terms of severity and what the actual injury is. But Ryan Watts, Steelers draft pick, 6th round pick, safety out of Texas 2 years ago, had a strong preseason and then injured his neck right at the tail end of the preseason, like the last snap of the preseason, had to medically retire from that. And so is Broderick going to have to do the same thing? We obviously hope the severity is nowhere near that, but the fact that he's nowhere near ready to play after an injury that occurred in December is concerning. And I think that the Steelers are going to have to plan accordingly, unfortunately. And what does this mean for the future? We'll get to some of the draft comments here in a little bit, but I mean, should the Steelers be back in the market maybe for an offensive tackle as early as the first round again? Like that, I think that those conversations at least have to be had at this point.
Yeah, I think they're going to be had internally. I still think, and we'll get into it later, I feel like they're going to probably look to bring in competition via free agency. And I actually wrote about Braxton Jones from the Bears as a potential cheap get because of his injury last year and the fact that the Bears are probably going to move on from him. But like, I don't know if it'll be a high draft pick, but it's certainly possible if they think the Jones definitely can't play. Like and that's the difference is like, it's not just, is he going to have a chance to come back or not? Is he going to play football period again? Because if he's not, you do then have to maybe address it more aggressively.
I agree. And I know a lot of fans maybe listening to this show will say, well, what about Dylan Cook? Dylan Cook played well down the stretch.
He did. I think he's going to get a chance, I think, for sure.
I think he could too. Yeah. We'll see how it goes, though. But either way, whether they have Cook as a stopgap starter, they're still going to need somebody else there as well. All right, Shayne, let's talk about free agency, some Steelers free agents and potential extensions that Omar Khan mentioned. Kenneth Gainwell was one of them. He was very adamant that he wants Gainwell back. He says that Gainwell knows that we want him back. And so made it very clear. Yes, we want you part of our football program. Now, what that looks like moving forward, I don't know if he'll ever be as productive as he was last year because he had so many opportunities in the passing game. I hope he doesn't get that many, quite frankly, because it means you're not throwing to your receivers. Enough you do. And it's nothing against Gainwell. I think Gainwell had a really good season. Team MVP last year.
Yeah. That's going to be a fun trivia question in a while, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. If you can get him back at the right price, I'm all for that. I'm thinking $4 or $5 million per year range, maybe on a 2-year contract. That's what the feel sounds like anyway for Gainwell. So your thoughts on Gainwell comments, Shayne? Do you agree with Khan being really quick to jump on wanting him back for next year?
I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Like he was really good. I think even if you hope that he doesn't have to have as many touches through the air, unless they're going to be willing to actually give Caleb Johnson a legit role in the backfield this year, then you should want Gainwell back because you know what you're getting with him. You don't have to spend a ton of money on him because he is a kind of a part-time player still. Been in the league for a while, so he's not going to cost that much. You already have Warren there too. Like those two obviously play well together. Makes a ton of sense. I would just say, hey, 2 years, 10 million, 8 million guaranteed because it's a short deal. Just come back. Like I would be fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Shayne, we obviously don't know how things are going to go for Caleb Johnson from here, but I probably should mention those comments as well. Omar Khan admitted that he was disappointing as a rookie. He needs to be better. He believes he will turn a corner.
He does
this year. But I think there's an argument to be made too that going from Arthur Smith's wide zone offense, where it was kind of a mirror of what he did in a sense at Iowa, now to McCarthy operating. I mean, if McCarthy does anything like he did in the past, he's going to operate a lot out of 11 personnel from the shotgun, and running backs are going to be required to run from the shotgun. That feels like a less than ideal fit for Caleb Johnson, who is a build-up speed runner, and maybe even a better fit for Kenneth Gainwell. And so I think that you could argue that, I mean, maybe Johnson just isn't a great fit for this team all of a sudden.
Yeah.
If he were to turn out anyway, but certainly bringing back Gainwell would greatly, I think, hinder the upside and potential impact of Johnson on this roster.
And yeah, that's the tough part is like, obviously I really liked Caleb Johnson. I would love to see him succeed here. I would love to see him get on the field. Jalen Warren is really good. Kenneth Gainwell was really good last year. And as you said, not a great scheme fit.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's really long for the team now. Does that mean they should just go ahead and trade him right now or get what they can for him? No, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting to the middle of the season next year and he has like 15 touches. And if that's the case, then you probably should get traded to a team that could use him better. Like, it feels like he should be on like the Niners is the backup to McCaffrey. Like that would be probably really good, right? Because Brian Robinson, I think, is who they had last year. He was okay, but like similar type, like that would make sense to me, opposed to what the Steelers are going to try to do offensively.
Yeah, it's something worth thinking about at least because this scheme is going to look different. And I think if we look at what McCarthy has valued in the past,
right?
I don't know where Johnson fits, but I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how this whole backfield unfolds here. Another name that he mentioned, Shayne, Isaac Seumalo, said he basically more or less thanked Seumalo for what he brought the team, but it really didn't sound like that they were going to move forward and try to retain Seumalo, who is obviously an unrestricted free agent. Looks like they might be moving into a different direction at left guard. Yeah,
and I think I'm okay with that as long as they intend to find someone to actually replace him and not just stick Spencer Anderson there. As much as I think Anderson was good last year, it was in the role that he was playing. He was good. And I don't know if he would be very good as a full-time starter, frankly. They've already gotten enough out of him where it's like, that was a good pick, right? Like you kind of already are playing with house money. I don't know if you want to stretch it into him being the starting left guard for you, ideally. So if they can find another veteran or if they can draft somebody, because this is a really good guard draft, in my opinion, then that's fine. But if he's only going to get I've seen projections like 9-10 million, I might throw him a year or two deal because he's been really good for us.
Yeah, I will say when it comes to guard, it's one of the, I want to say, easier positions to find when it comes to replacement level football players. You want to get really good guards, you typically have to invest.
And they're getting paid a lot now because teams have realized if they're really good, then if you have a bad guard, you'll pay any amount of money to not have a bad guard because that can be really bad right now. Yeah,
you will. Yeah. And so I'll be interested to see which direction they take too. Is that going to be Spencer Anderson in an early round draft pick? Is it going to be maybe a higher profile free agent, go out and replace Seumalo with maybe a guy that's a couple of years younger in free agency? Either way, it doesn't sound like Seumalo is going to return. In terms of extensions, and well, actually, let's talk about the tight end position is a position that Khan was asked about too. Darnell Washington, glowing endorsement, said, I would take 20 of these guys on my roster. Who wouldn't? I mean, theoretically, Shayne, if you were able to duplicate Darnell Washington, that might be like one of the most valuable players in the league that you can stretch out across positions. So you can be a couple of my tight ends, all of my offensive line, all my defensive line. Like that wouldn't be a bad player to replicate if you were in a crazy scenario where you're given the chance to. don't blame him for that comment at all. But he also talked about Pat Freiermuth and said, we paid Pat for a reason. And so now the question becomes like, if McCarthy is really going to run a ton of 11 personnel, which means one tight end on the field, and it's historically he's valued the guys that can do receiving work like Jake Ferguson, like Dalton Schultz. What does that mean for Darnell? What does his role look like on this team? And I think that he's obviously very, very high in Washington. Is he a guy that gets one of those extensions? Because Washington, along with most of the players from that 2023 class, minus Broderick Jones, who can get a fifth-year option, everybody else from that 2023 class, which is a pretty strong class overall, those guys need extensions. Is Darnell going to be one of the guys that gets an extension, Shayne?
I really hope so. I really do, because he's just so fun to watch and he's so unique. But I do think, like you said, it comes down to, like, you have to ask Mike McCarthy, like, if I extend this guy, are you going to actually put him on the field? And how are you going to put him on the field, right? Because I do think that there's a chance that because of how uniquely gifted he is and because of the fact that there is tape now on him playing a role in this offense for the first time last year, really, Mike McCarthy might look at it and go, well, I mean, I have to play this guy somehow, right? Like, I have to get him on the field. I just have no choice. Now, how he chooses to do that will be very interesting. Will he kind of have him and Pat spend a decent amount of time swapping out with each other in the 11 personnel? Is he going to go to more heavy personnel sometimes because he has a player like Darnell where it makes a lot of sense to do so? I'm hoping he kind of refits his offense a little bit to allow for some of the heavier stuff more often than he has in the past, because that should allow Darnell to play more and also not misuse Pat, which I think is another key thing that Omar talked about.
Yeah, and Shayne, I think what I'm really interested in here is if Darnell gets that extension, and again, by the sounds of it, Khan loves the guy and wants to keep him around. I don't know. Again, I don't know how that fits in McCarthy's offense. That's a different conversation. But if he does stay around, I'm really interested to see where these contract numbers come in, because unlike the tight end market, like, you can't say, well, my client had X amount of production. That's a really bad argument in Darnell's case, because in 3 years, he has just 57 catches for 625 yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 seasons, 50 games. I mean, if you break it down on a per game basis, we're talking about a little over a reception per game. His agent's not going to argue from that standpoint. His agent's going to argue, my client is 6'7" and 311 pounds, and he's one of one in the NFL, and he's one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. But I just don't know where that value holds up in terms of NFL standards, when a lot of these positions, skill positions in particular, you're typically assessed on your production. And so where does that put him? Does that put him tier 2 among tight ends, tier 3 in terms of pay grade? Like, it's hard to put a number on that exactly.
It's really hard. Tight end's just a weird position in general to value and to evaluate in terms of, like, the contracts, because unless you're one of those, like, top end, 60, 70, 80 plus catch guys, they generally don't get paid a ton, right?
Yeah,
like,
they don't.
Even Pat, like, he's getting paid a good amount of money, but it's still, like, I mean, $12 million, $11 million. Like, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, for a pass catcher, it's not that much money. Like, there's wide receiver 4s that are getting like $10 million a year. So, like, yeah, exactly. Like, there's guys who don't see the field that much who are getting 10 million just because when they do, they might, give you something. So, like, I mean, honestly, we're a couple years removed from it. Do you just give him kind of the Pat deal from a couple years ago and call it a day? Like, would he take that? Maybe. Because, like,
I mean, I think in terms of production, like, if because it's so arbitrary to say my tight end's a better blocking tight end than yours, but I have an eighth of the production. Like, I think that they would settle for that for sure. And maybe that would even be on the higher end. Like, it's hard to say. Like, I'm really interested to see what
because I'm thinking about, and maybe if I'd have to look it up, but I'm thinking of a player, and I'm wondering, I forget how much they're getting paid at tight end, but it is, I'd have to look it up.
So I've got the tight end numbers pulled up in front of me, Shayne, and I know we're spending some time on this. That's all right though.
It's worth it, because this is an interesting conversation.
It really is. Like, Kittle and McBride, 19 million per year. I mean, McBride is 123 catch, 1,300 yards. Like, you're not getting anywhere near that, regardless of how valuable you think Darnell is not touching that. Travis Kelce, for all the stuff that he's done in the past, $17 million a year. And again, when you talk about this in terms of wide receivers, it's a fraction of top wide receiver money. TJ Hawkinson at 16, Kyle Pitts on the franchise tag at 15, David Njoku at 13, Mark Andrews at 13, Cole Kmet, Jake Ferguson, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, at $12 million, Dalton Schultz at 12, Evan Ingram at 11, Juwan Johnson at 10, still decent receiving production there. Dallas Goedert at 10 is a steal of a deal. Taysom Hill at 10, which a gadget player.
Yeah,
that one's and then we're at Dawson Knox. That might be a good baseline there.
Maybe
the Y tight end, the blocker there. $9.8 million for Dawson Knox. Hunter Henry, Gesicki, Josh Oliver, pure blocking tight end. Y tight end.
That's who I was thinking of. Josh Oliver is the one that I was trying to remember the cap hit for, like the salary for, because I think that is a good place to start. On the conversation.
His deal came just last offseason, and he was one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. So maybe that's a pretty good starting place there is Josh Oliver. I think that he's going to get more than that. So maybe we're looking at the $8 to $10 million per year range. If we just had to put an arbitrary number on it right now, just based on some really quick math and just looking at some of these numbers, we can obviously dive deeper into that later, but I am really interested in that. Our listeners, if you're listening to this show, you probably are too, because that's the kind of stuff that we care about. All right, let's move on, Shayne. Let's talk about some of the returning veterans here. And this, Shayne, more than almost any comments that Omar Khan made in his NFL Combine presser, I was perhaps the most disappointed in this.
Yeah.
So if you didn't hear what he said on Jalen Ramsey and Patrick Queen, he was asked about each of these guys specifically. He said, Patrick, we love Patrick. He wants to be here. Basically saying, yep, you're coming back. And then same with Jalen Ramsey. Yeah, Jalen Ramsey, paraphrasing, of course, it is going to be on this roster in some sense, whether that's at nickel, safety, corner, whatever, doing a little bit of whatever. You can go, again, check out the full comments on our articles, stillcurtain.com. Here's what's disappointing, though, Shayne. If you like Jalen Ramsey, fine. I don't care. That's fine with me. But guess what? Let's talk about this from a business standpoint for a second, because Jalen Ramsey, he's an older corner at this stage of his career. He's going to be, 33 years old or 32 years old. He's got a cap number of $19.5 million. And if he sticks at safety, that's one of the most expensive safeties in the league. He's not going to get better at this stage of his career. He's only going to go downhill, only going to lose athleticism. Here's what's frustrating. The Steelers would lose exactly $0.00 if they outright released Jalen Ramsey. And if you like him that much, guess what? Sign him back to a deal for half the price, because you could do that. There's not anybody that's going to pay nearly $20 million out there for Jalen Ramsey at this stage of his career. If you like him, then say you're taking a pay cut, or I'm just going to release you because you have no guaranteed money left. And then I'm just going to sign you back because nobody else is going to sign you at $12 million. I'll save $8 million. I'll save $6 million. Make a good business decision here. If you want him back, get him back for cheaper. There's no reason to move forward with him on his current contract. That's the first part of that, Shayne. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Absolutely. And guess what? If you cut him and he doesn't want to come back because you cut him and you ruin the relationship, whatever, I don't care.
So what? You get $20 million to spend on someone young.
Yeah, I just don't care. Like this is not even an anti-Jalen Ramsey thing. I'm not saying he's bad or that he shouldn't be on the team or any of that stuff. At $20 million, there's just better ways you can spend your money. And we're going to talk about the salary cap in a minute. And I get, like, they're not hurting for space. That's not really the problem. It's that if you are serious about competing for a Super Bowl, which is what you continue to tell us you are, and it's why you hire Mike McCarthy and why you want Aaron Rodgers back and all this stuff, spending $20 million on an okay safety or okay nickel when you could take that money and reinvest it into 2 or 3 players probably that could make your team better, it's just bad process then. Like you can't do both of those things, in my opinion. You can't say you're competing and then spend $20 million on a safety that is only probably okay. Like you can't do that.
Shayne, that money right there, the money that's saved. But now, obviously, if you got rid of we know the counter arguments coming already. If you got rid of Jalen Ramsey, you would need another safety to replace him. I understand that. You can go cheaper at that position. The Steelers 2 off seasons ago, they signed Deshaun Elliott to a 2-year, $6 million deal, $3 million per year for a quality safety. Safeties come cheap unless you're getting a top of the market Kyle Hamilton-like safety, which Jalen Ramsey is not at this stage of his career. So save that money. That gets you almost, 2/3 of the way there to Malik Willis if you want him, or the highest price. Anybody in free agency. If you want to go after Alec Pierce, like that gets you, that's the money that you need right there for Alec Pierce. And so it's so frustrating to keep that for a free safety, which is not inside the top 7 most important positions in the league. And for a player that's on the downfall of his career, I don't understand why you would do that. And Shayne, the second part of this, just as frustrating, if not more so, because this is a worse player than Jalen Ramsey at this stage of his career. Patrick Queen. There's a lot of discussion on Queen. He does have his moments, and he did have a few good games last season, but for the most part, I think he was an absolute detriment, especially in pass coverage and as a tackler. I mean, PFF credited Queen for allowing 74 catches for 829 yards and 3 touchdowns, a 114 passer rating. And Shayne, on top of that, he missed 20.4% of his tackles. 20.4%. And so, I mean, honestly, we're talking like a fourth of every tackle he attempted, he's missing. He's not going to get better in coverage at this stage of his career. Who he is who he is. We've seen him for 4 years in Baltimore. We saw him in Pittsburgh the last 2 seasons. Queen has a cap number of $17.1 million. The Steelers could instantly save $13.33 million by cutting him loose. And Shayne, if you put those together, you're talking a butt ton of, you're talking a ton of savings, a ton of cap savings between Jalen Ramsey and Queen. The collection of the two, if released, can get you any free agent on the market, or 2 quality players to replace these guys. I do not understand why Khan would hitch his wagon to these free agent signings the Steelers have had that have been modest at best and are clearly overpriced.
You know how I feel about this. We've talked about Patrick Queen a lot. And at this point, I feel like I'm bullying him at this point, because it's ridiculous. But he's a replacement level linebacker who's a 100%. Really good athlete, who makes occasional flashes in the run game, and used to even more so than he has with the Steelers, but did sometimes flash in the passing game too. But realistically, he doesn't do enough good things to be paid what he's getting paid. Just bottom line. He's not consistent enough. He doesn't have enough of a true strength to his game. He's not like a Jordan Brooks who, he can't cover anybody, but boy, oh boy, can he play the run. Or even Bobby Wagner at this point in his career, where he can't cover probably you and I, Tommy, but he certainly can run downhill and take out a running back. He doesn't have that. He's a kind of he's a wishy-washy player in every element of his game. And you can't pay $17 million, whatever it's going to be against the cap this year for that player. Especially when there's guys out there like Leo Chanel, who honestly is pretty much everything people think Patrick Queen is who Leo Chanel actually is. Or a Devin Lloyd, we've talked, any of these guys, they're gonna be kind of expensive because they're linebackers on the open market who can play, but they're not going to be more expensive than Queen already is kind of for you. It doesn't make sense to continue to do this with him, in my opinion.
Absolutely not. He's a high variance player, Shayne, with more bad than good to his game. We know who he is at this stage of his career. He's going into year 6, year 7.
Year 7.
Year 7 now. I mean, he is who he is at this stage of his career. You can put that money, you can put that $13.33 million in savings back into a Devin Lloyd who is coming off a phenomenal season. If you want to go that route and do a really high free agent investment, you can do something like that. You can get a Leo Chanel, who, by the way, is projected downhill player who's a good run defender, projected to make just $6 million a year. You could get a better linebacker and put money in your pocket for something else. I do not understand why Omar Khan is already making a definitive statement that Jalen Ramsey and Queen are going to be part of this roster when I don't get it in terms of a business decision. It's $1 billion business. These are really bad contracts, 2 of the worst contracts on the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can get out of these with a ton of combined savings between the two and put that towards anybody you want in free agency. Get younger, get better at these positions or different positions entirely. Their choice. They're electing not to do that. And I think that it's perhaps the most concerning decision that Khan made in terms of what he addressed in his media session at the Combine. Shayne, let's talk about the salary cap space that Khan was asked about and addressed in terms of what the Steelers can do. He said they've got a lot of flexibility, and they do.
They do.
They've got a good amount of space to work with. The Steelers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in cap space. As we sit here right now, 44.9 million, 39.3 million in effective cap space, which means once you fill out your 90-man summer roster, at least with veteran minimum players, you have that much space to work with. Still one of the better amounts in the league. I thought this was going to get a lot better, Shayne. I thought they were going to double this number by getting rid of the guys that we just talked about, plus Jonnu Smith, who, my goodness, I mean, contract comes back. And
the fact that Khan said that, like, he doesn't see any reason for anyone to be a cap casualty.
Yes.
Anyone is the key word there.
Jonnu.
If he's on the roster when free agency starts, then they are just simply an unserious organization at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where you can't spend $11 million on Jonnu. You just simply can't. It doesn't matter. You could have $100 million in cap space. There's no reason to have Jonnu Smith on the roster, frankly, like just because of a football player in general at this point. So, but anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because he did say, we don't see any reason to have cap casualties. You have to. It just makes sense. And I think that that's the problem here that we're seeing. So yes, they do have a fair amount of cap space to work with. You can get some of these extensions done, which that's the other thing, Shayne, is he said, we're not big free agent spenders. He kind of made that point and said, we want to focus on the guys in the roster. We want to get these guys extended. And so again, going back to that 2023 class, we're looking at guys like potentially Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington, Joey Porter Jr. That's going to be the biggest contract of all these. Nick Herbig, does he stick around, knowing that the Steelers have two very expensive edge rushers, at least collectively, under contract? Highsmith's deal isn't a heavy deal, but between the two, it's a lot of investment there. You can't get out of TJ Watt's deal, not for another year. So do they even bring him back? Like, I think that that's potentially where we're looking at the bulk of this cap space going to, right?
Potentially, yeah. And I think for those players, that's okay. But that's another reason why getting rid of the fat off the roster and trimming some of that off is really important, because it gives you even more flexibility to target key additions in free agency, because you do need some guys to be added to this roster, not just through the draft. And they have to be players that aren't 33 years old, in my opinion. So they're going to actually cost some amount of money. Like, that's just why you need to make some of these moves before you get into free agency. Like, Nick Herbig, I don't even know where to start with his contract, because, like, he technically has never been a full-time starter, but also, like, he's clearly of that caliber. Yeah. So what does his agent think? Like, what would it take to get him on an extension? I have no idea, because the edge market has exploded, but, like, he kind of can't really ask for top of the market money, because he hasn't technically shown the full ability over the course of a season. Could you get him at a decent contract that makes sense? Maybe. If I was him, though, I'd be holding out to get to free agency, because a team that has seen what we've seen from him might just throw him. They might just throw him like $35 million a year, just because they might. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they did that. The Benton thing is weird, because, like, we both like him, I think, but he plays the wrong position. So, like, maybe that'll change a little bit, and it kind of did change a little bit last year with Harmon being there. The Joey Porter Jr. of it all. How much money is he going to get, man? I don't know. It's going to be a lot of money. And I think
we're looking at $100 million contract.
He is. Like, he's going to. Last year, though, does make me feel better about that reality. And I hope that continues to be what it looks like. But that it's going to be a lot of money.
It's going to be a lot of money. And he doesn't have the ball production, but
that's not why you're paying him, though. So
no, it's the lockdown corner is going to get paid. I mean, that one we could definitely see coming after that rebound season last year. So we'll see where that ends up being. And for those already asking, like, well, $44 million at the end of the day isn't a lot of cap space, especially when you consider the Steelers want to carry like 7 to 9 million of that into the season for in-season injuries, all that kind of stuff. What they typically do is they'll push money down the road a little bit further. They'll structure these contracts in a way where you can take a much smaller cap number up front.
Yeah.
And then some of the bigger cap numbers towards the back of the contract. So there are means of getting that done. Now, my pushback here with all of this, Shayne, is Omar Khan is known for being that cap guy, right?
Correct.
But does he have the sense to know that you've got some bad contracts on your team? Because he didn't seem to point that out at all in his presser. And maybe he's just kind of just not giving the media what they want there, but there's some really bad deals.
I do wonder if this is like, I'm not going to say at the combine that I'm going to cut 2 players on my team that are some of the quote unquote leaders of the defense or whatever. And I'm fine with that if that's the case. Like I don't blame him for doing that, but I kind of don't believe that he's not being serious though. That's my thing, is I think he's being honest about a lot of this. It's just, that's
the problem.
That's
the problem. I mean, Tomlin thought that Queen was really good. So, I mean, if it's the group think type of thing.
Oh, yeah. Which
they're seeing the same thing. There's a lot of overlap there between Tomlin, Colbert, Khan in those nearly 2 decades. And I mean, it's just, it makes you wonder, like, how much groupthink is going on behind closed doors. And do they all kind of have the same mindset there where we've got to have these veterans? We all like the same guys. Like, I don't know,
but
it is concerning. It is concerning. And if I will say, Shayne, definitively, if Ramsey, Queen, and Jonnu Smith are back on this roster at their current contracts, I will lose a ton of faith in Omar Khan in what he offers this team.
He would firmly be in like, not hot seat territory in like real life, but for me, I'd be like, I don't know if this needs to be the guy. So that's just kind of where we're at with it.
I would have the same feeling as well, because that's very basic practices for $1 billion business like this. Let's talk about the Steelers in terms of Khan's comments about the NFL draft.
Yeah.
And he was asked in a sense about, would you be willing to get away from the trenches, kind of knowing that his first 3 drafts have been offensive tackle, defensive tackle. We talk about 3 trench players in the first round. And so the question was, you're going to go that route again? You're going to get away from that? And more or less, he kind of said, as we sit here right now, it looks like we might get away from the trenches. I mean, first of all, why say that? Why not? Why not? You don't have to give the media anything you don't want to give. And secondly, should that be the case? Because we can argue now, Steelers need maybe a left tackle, maybe a left guard, maybe another defensive tackle. Like, should we throw that out the window automatically and say, I'm going to automatically limit myself to like skill player quarterback? Are they going to have tunnel vision is what I'm getting at, Shayne, in the draft. Is Khan already kind of alluding to some of that tunnel vision?
I think this is where you can start having the conversation. Like, how much is he messing with us? Right. Because if he's messing with us about this, maybe he's messing with us about all of it. And honestly, part of me is like, please, I hope that's true, because that would be great. But I do think there's a little bit of truth to this. I think that he recognizes that he just helped hire an offensive head coach to a team whose offense is in desperate need of skill talent. And I think he understands that in this draft class, there's a pretty high likelihood that at least some of the best players on the board when they're going to pick in the first round are going to be skill position players, ideally receiver. And if that's the case, then it's probably going to make sense and line up for them to take one anyway. And that's what we've seen heavily mocked for a reason, right?
Yeah.
But I do think you're right that, like, if he is kind of in a mode of like, yeah, we're definitely taking the best skill player we have on the board, that is a mentality that generally just doesn't work in the NFL draft. Like, you shouldn't take players solely because you need them. You take them because they are the best player, or at least one of the best players in your opinion on the board at the time. Now, that could still line up where it just happens to be receiver, like I just said. But if there's a Vega Ione from Penn State, or if you like Caden Proctor or Monroe Freeling or any of these other tackles that are starting to get some hype, like, if you really like those guys and you just think they're the best players, you shouldn't be afraid to take them. Like, that just should be the mentality for the draft, I think, especially.
100%. I think a good rule of thumb for the draft, I think that nearly every team should operate like this. And there's only a few exceptions. Like, if you are legitimately like a bona fide Super Bowl contender and you could have the luxury of going any which direction, you can afford to take a running back. You can afford to take someone that's a little bit lesser player on your board because you have a bigger need. For the most part, take the best players at the most important positions. And if you have guys that are a tier higher than some of the receivers there, those are the guys you should be looking at. You need to build the team the right way, because this team is not ready to compete in the playoffs, let alone
there's no draft pick you can make this year that's going to make this team a Super Bowl contender.
No, and honestly,
as currently constructed.
And Shayne, pretty much everything is on the dock, from quarterback to receiver to offensive line to defensive line, like to secondary. Nothing should be off their board in the first round to say, I don't need that. Yeah, you do. You need talent everywhere, and you need to get the best players is what you need to do. You need to build the foundation of the roster, which they've been trying to do these last 3 drafts between Omar Khan and Andy Weidl since they've taken over. But don't stop now. Keep going that direction and say, if I get 2 more good drafts here, you're going to have a really strong roster, and you're going to be able to compete deep into the playoffs. But if you are already starting to get that tunnel vision, you say, I need a receiver, so I'm going to draft a receiver. I need a cornerback, I'm going to draft a cornerback. That's what bad teams do. And that's how the Steelers drafted bad from 2018 through 2022. They did the exact same thing. You can't get into that mindset. And so I really hope that's not the case. I don't want him to eliminate trenches by any stretch of the imagination. I want them to consider the top guys on the board. Who is the best overall player, or 2 or 3 players when the Steelers are on the clock? Don't reach down your draft board just because you have a need. All right. Overall thoughts, Shayne, on Omar Khan's press conference. Are you disappointed? Are you happy with it? Are you neutral about it?
Yeah, I can't really say that I'm anything other than a little disappointed. I think I would have liked him to, one, like, push back a little bit on the we definitely want Aaron Rodgers back as the quarterback. I would have liked to see him say, well, we're talking to Aaron, he's an option, but and he did say, like, we're keeping our options open, everything's on the table. Yeah. But he said it in a way that's like, but I want Aaron Rodgers. Like, it was very clear that he still is, like, on that train. I would have liked to hear him just admit that, like, yeah, we have to rework the roster, and there's guys that we have to make decisions on, and not like, oh yeah, we love everybody, everyone's great. There's no cap casualties, never heard of it. Don't love that. Just straight up don't love that. But for the most part, again, nothing that surprising, unfortunately, in a lot of ways for me. So I can't say that I'm anything other than a little disappointed.
Yeah, agreed with you. I would go as far to say I'm more than a little disappointed, just because the things that I wanted him to, in a couple of those things that he talked about, Shayne, the veteran contracts, the draft strategy, when asked about those, I think a better response would have been going the other way completely and saying, like, for the draft, no, we're not going to eliminate anything. For the free agents or the veteran players on bad contracts, all options are opened, from renegotiating to contract to potentially cutting salaries or cutting players altogether. Like, I don't think that I was thrilled with the responses he gave. So I would say I am flat out disappointed with the overall presser from Khan. I just hope that it's not true, because he can say one thing and mean another. And I hope that he's just, I hope it's smoke screens for some. Yeah.
Once upon a time, he did say that Kenny Pickett was his quarterback, and very shortly after that, he was not. So maybe it's one of those. Hopefully, we'll see.
I hope so as well. All right. If you are a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers and would like to support the Steel Curtain podcast, please consider subscribing to the Steel Curtain podcast on YouTube. Be sure to follow our written work at steelcurtain.com. We appreciate your support. We have shows that go as live as premieres on Tuesday evenings, Wednesday evenings. Be sure to check it out and come back for more content. Like this stream, leave us a comment down below. Shayne, let's talk about the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine, positions and players to keep an eye on, because these next 4 days will be huge for everyone in the NFL circle. They'll be weighing every which thing that comes out of this, from player weigh-ins to cornerback arm length to whatever, you name it. It matters to teams. Teams have thresholds in terms of the weigh-ins. They have thresholds in terms of the speed that they want at certain positions. Who's going to work out? Does that knock players for not working out? And one of the names, let's talk about what we want to watch for, Shayne. One name that we will not watch, but we can already see maybe some writing on the walls for a potential slide, would be Arizona State wide receiver Jordan Tyson, who is not going to participate in anything at the Combine. I actually love this, Shayne, because I am a big Jordan Tyson fan. The injuries scare me, but I think there's a lot to like there. And for me, there are 3 tier 1 receivers this year and a notable gap, he would be in my tier 1. And then I think that it drops the talent. There's a talent drop after that. If him not working out at the combine means potentially slipping outside of the top 10 or 12 and maybe going to 14, 16, 17, a range in which the Steelers can jump up at only the cost of one of their 3 third-round picks, kind of via Broderick Jones-esque in 2023, I can absolutely get behind that for a receiver that I have in a different tier group as the rest.
Yeah, he's an interesting case because the fact that he isn't testing, and it's apparently related to the fact that he had the hamstring injury last year. Mm-hmm. I definitely am worried about him in general in the NFL.
That's fair, yeah.
And for me personally, I liked him a lot. He didn't make my top 3 receivers partially because of the injury history. I think if he had a clean bill of health, he would have had a chance to be there. There's some questions I have with him as a route runner in terms of the way he runs his routes in particular and the way he kind of comes off the line of scrimmage. And we can get into that more when we do our mocks and things like that. But generally, he's a guy that I would have loved to see test because that would prove, 1, that he's healthy, and 2, that he feels comfortable doing those drills and training for those drills, despite some of the soft tissue injury stuff he's dealt with. It's one of those things where it really sucks that he's not going to be here because even if it could benefit certain teams who want to draft him later, it doesn't signal good things for his long-term outlook, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that that's fair. And the injury questions with him are certainly warranted. I think I think that you would be getting good value there, but there's always a risk when you draft injured players. The Steelers have done it, and it's been bad in terms of the results, like Corey Trice, which wasn't a high draft pick, but just riddled with injuries. Yeah. And they've taken other guys like Darnell Washington, who was
supposedly had a knee thing,
knee issue, whatever, longevity, but it's turned out to be a good pick. And so doesn't matter. You can fall on either side of the fence. There's some upside to be had there. Another thing that I would mention, Shayne, the combine, we're very early in this process and tons more is going to come out. And we know how many players the Steelers are going to meet with over the course of the next 3-4 days here. But they have met with a couple potential first-round prospects on the defensive line, which is what we just talked about. They may get away from. Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's something worth keeping an eye on. Ohio State's Caden McDonald is one of them. And they also met with the Texas Tech defense tackle too.
Lee Hunter, yeah.
So Lee Hunter, yes. The name was escaping me for a second. And so both guys that could go late in the first round. Does that mean anything to you at all, Shayne, or is this just due diligence? And if these guys come available in free agency 4 or 5 years from now, we'll have an eye on them.
I think it's mostly due diligence. I do think there's some reason to believe that they could go interior defensive line again, especially if they aren't sold on Keanu Benton as part of the future here. One, you do have to plan for the eventual retirement of Cam Hayward, whenever that is. And as much as I think Derek Harmon is probably going to be the guy that they hope takes over that role in that kind of face of the defensive line, you need more than just him. And if Benton either isn't retained long-term or just isn't that guy in their opinion, getting a true nose tackle type, which is the case for both of those players, could benefit the defensive line overall and kind of open up other guys to do things. Lee Hunter, especially, he finished as one of my top interior defensive linemen. He is a really fun player. He offers pass rush juice at the nose tackle position, something you just don't really get a lot. He would make a lot of sense, I think, if they wanted to go that direction, whereas McDonald, more of a traditional nose type. So,
yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning as well. I'll throw one more name in here, Darrell Jackson Jr., the Florida State defensive tackle they reportedly met with as well. And what all three of these guys have in common, Shayne, Caden McDonald, and we don't have the official weigh-in numbers yet, so this is pre-NFL combine weigh-in. It shouldn't be too far off from this.
Probably not.
Caden McDonald, 6'3", 326. Lee Hunter, 6'4", 330. And Darrell Jackson Jr., 6'5", 337. These are big football players.
Big guys.
So are the Steelers potentially interested in adding another big-bodied defensive lineman to the future of that offensive line that might look like Derek Harmon and maybe Y.A. Black and maybe Benton if he sticks around and one more mammoth interior defender like that? Maybe that's something that this front office is valuing. What else, Shayne, are you interested in watching here over the next few days at the NFL Combine?
I want to see how explosive these linebackers and safeties are, especially those two spots, because I haven't gotten to them yet. I'm about to get to linebackers and then finish up with the secondary on my own personal scouting. But everything I've heard is like we got some guys in this class that are athletes at the position too, like not just really good football players, but really good athletes on top of it. And seems like a lot of them are going to be testing. I know that Arvell Reese is kind of in that weird like linebacker edge situation. I think today he said that he's viewing himself as like an outside linebacker edge type, which I do think is the best, course of action for him moving forward.
Yeah.
So guys like him, but he's testing. I'm not sure about his teammate Sonny Styles, but I assume he's going to test. He's going to put on a show. I think some of these safeties could test really well. Dylan Thieneman, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. Like these guys could really put on a show if they all test.
Yeah, and it's a tremendous safety group this year too. Tremendous safety group,
heard,
and I think that you can even at pick 21, like you could.
It's possible.
Caleb Downs is off the board. You could still get a good safety there. Now, philosophy argument.
Probably not.
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't.
Especially if you are keeping Jalen Ramsey around. Maybe just
and to build a foundation of your roster. Like I do think there's a lot to say about building it from the inside out. Start with the trenches. Make sure those are set before you start going to the non-power 5, money 5 positions like that. Cornerback, I'm really interested to see as well, Shayne, because I do think the testing kind of matters for these guys. Not just the testing, but the movement the movement skills on field. Are they fluid athletes? Do they have the change of direction ability? But also the 40 time, like in the 10-yard split, I do look at that at corner because it's one of the positions you have to have speed to play there. We see guys like 28, 29 years old that already start to fall off because they don't have the speed anymore to stick with young NFL wide receivers. So I think there's the top 3 corners, Delane McCoy and Avion Terrell. And then there's a tier gap drop off. The next few guys after that, like how do these guys test? Terrell is someone who's firmly on Steelers draft radar, I would have to say. He's
met with him today at the combine. So
met with him at the combine. The Clemson cornerback it's like right on value where the Steelers are picking. They've got like one respectable cornerback under contract right now in Joey Porter Jr. If you're counting Jalen Ramsey as a safety, James Pierre is a free agent. Sante Samuel Jr. is a free agent. Is Terrell going to be big enough for the Steelers? Is it going to be long enough for the Steelers? Do they even care about these thresholds anymore?
I don't know.
Patrick Graham did have somewhat bigger corners. I mean, and maybe that's the route that they'll go again. But someone we certainly are going to be interested in tracking at the combine. I think he's a really good player overall. Forced fumble machine. Like there's a lot to like about his game, but he's going to come in on the smaller side. Is he going to hit 180 pounds soaking wet? 5'11", shortish arms. Like these are the type of things that we got to look for. It's not to say that you take players off your boards, but which players have red flags? And I think that's something that's really important to gauge. I remember going, Shayne, all the way back to 2013 now. And watching the NFL combine and seeing Jarvis Jones go out there and run like a 5-second 40, essentially running the 4.9s. I'm like, this is a major red flag, especially when you have you've got spinal stenosis and you were kind of just an overhang defender who wasn't blocked in college. Like you have to eliminate risks. And if we see some really poor testing numbers, some guys that already had questions about their speed or their size, and then they show up and prove us right with our concerns, that's a red flag that we need to add to the radar here.
For sure.
Anybody else, any other positions or players that you're going to be watching, Shayne? And we'll move on here.
I mean, I'm going to watch all of them because all of this interest to me. But in terms of keeping it Steelers based, I think those are the positions Steelers fans should be paying attention to for the most part.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, make sure that you are constantly refreshing our website, stillcurtain.com.
We have stuff going on.
As this is going up, we're going to have lots of combine content coming at you with all of the latest news and potential Steelers prospects that could be on the board and participating here. From the highs, the heartbreaks, every headline, this is the Still Curtain Podcast, your source of Steelers talk, powered by stillcurtain.com and the voices at Fansided. Shayne, I want to give our way too early NFL draft predictions, but before we do that, let's take a few minutes to look at Daniel Jeremiah's updated top 50 big board and some of the names that could be in that range for the Steelers before we kind of make our early round 1 predictions. We haven't done that yet this year. We're 2 months ahead of schedule, but we want to do it anyway and see if either one of us can hit this on the head or get really close, at least, because by the end of the process, Shayne, you and I will probably have a really good understanding of who they were going to draft. I got 2 of their last 3 first-round picks right. Broderick Jones, I had Amarius Mims in 2024, which I got the position right, not the player. And then 2025, I did get Derek Harmon as well, Shayne. So I know you and I, we study this so closely. We can pretty much hit the nail on the head by the end of this process here. So let's get to this. Daniel Jeremiah's board. I'm going to skip the top 9 prospects here, and let's jump to Mekhi Lemon at number 10. This is actually a 3-spot drop from where he was before. The USC wide receiver. Love this guy. You watch his tape. He reminds me like of a compact Puka Nacua, just like his play style, and I just love the way that he plays football. So tough, so violent after the catch, violent at the catch point, strong hands, yards per route run, phenomenal, coming off an excellent season. Like, I am all for this guy. Not going to make it to Pittsburgh's pick. They would have to trade up here. The question is, if he falls to 10 or outside of the top 10, just outside the top 10, Shayne, are you moving up for Lemon at all?
It's tough because I really like him a lot. He's my number 3 receiver currently on the board. He would be a really good fit for what McCarthy wants to do, is that kind of do-it-all slot player. It would probably be worth a decent move up, but I think you'd probably have to get into like the 14, 15 range before I'd feel comfortable doing it, because I do think some of the other receivers in the class are at least good enough players where you don't want to have to give up multiple like valuable picks to go up and get the guy just ahead of them in my personal rankings, at least, right? But he would be a really great fit for what they kind of need in the slot for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be exceptional, even though he's a little bit of a more compact frame than what McCarthy's typically had as his wide receiver 1. I think he can manipulate coverages. I think he can do all the things.
Plays bigger than his size too, for sure.
Plays way bigger than his size. I agree. Shayne, just to give kind of a cross comparison example here, theoretically, if the Steelers were to jump up to, let's say, pick 10, we saw this play out in 2019. The Steelers were picking 20. They jumped up to 10 for Devin Bush, which we all know how that went. But it cost Pittsburgh their first round pick, their 20th overall. It also cost them a second round pick of that draft and a third round pick of the following year's draft. So not cheap to make a move of that caliber. So that's what we'd be looking at, is something similar. Maybe it would be a second and a fourth, maybe it's something in that range. Sometimes teams are willing to go with a little bit less, or to move away from that draft calculator value a little bit there. But that's probably about what you're looking at. Next name on Daniel Jeremiah's board, his number 11th ranked player is Vega Ioane. Shayne, a name that you've talked about already, maybe the best guard prospect in this class. We'll see how he falls. I mean, it's a guard. And so just because Jeremiah's high on him doesn't mean that this is going to align with where he's drafted. Maybe he falls to Pittsburgh pick at 21, and maybe the Steelers would consider him there with the value. I watched his game, and I've watched some people break down his film. I think he is a really good player. I don't know if he's an elite level guard prospect, but that's just kind of my early feel on him. Shayne, how would you feel about Ioane?
He's going to be pretty high on my personal board because I think one thing in particular, he is an absolute rock in pass protection. Like, when someone tries to get into his chest as a pass rusher, they just stop their feet almost immediately on tape consistently.
Yeah.
Like, he just shuts down. Bull rush is he's quick enough to be able to deal with guys who have some of that quickness inside as a pass rusher. He's really good on stunts, being able to pick guys up and then wall them off, as even edge rushers coming in with a full head of steam. Like, he gives you such a floor as like a pass protecting guard that I think if a team like, for example, the Ravens at 14, right? Like, that's kind of, I think, where his conversation probably starts, right? If he gets past them, though, you start to see teams that need, edge rusher more, receiver more, whatever. He could end up at 21. Now, do I think he's necessarily going to be the most impactful player they can draft at 21? Maybe not. But as far as just pure football players, he's going to be in the argument, I think, at that point. So I wouldn't put it past them to consider him there.
Yeah, no, and I think that he at least should be in that discussion. He's certainly a good enough prospect to be. I want to hit two guys at once here, two offensive tackle prospects, Shayne, and we've obviously talked a lot about Broderick Jones. Doesn't seem like the Steelers are leaning that direction, but Francis Maioga of Miami, the 12th overall prospect on Daniel Jeremiah's big board, and Spencer Fanu of Utah, the 14th overall prospect. These are good tackle prospects, and maybe they don't have the length that you would want there. We'll see what their size ends up coming in at the NFL Combine. Good movers, powerful tenacity to their game. You would have to venture a guess that with the Steelers, if they stand pat at 21, if either of these guys fall, which they'd be lucky if one of them did, does it become like too good of value? Like, you're talking about a premium position here, the third or fourth most valuable position in all of football, offensive tackle, filling that left tackle void potentially for the long term, getting it right after the Broderick Jones stuff. Is that anything that they would consider at all this year, Shayne, if one of those guys fell?
I think if they fell there, which I don't think either of them do, just because I think
Probably
this tackle
not.
class is I like some of the guys, but I think it's thin enough that they're going to go pretty soon for teams that desperately need them. Like, I wouldn't be shocked as early as the Cardinals pick at 3 that one of these guys goes, just because they're kind of in this weird no man's land at pick 3 in this class. The Browns could easily take one at 6. You could even kind of argue that the Titans should consider one at 4 with the way that their offensive line is currently constructed. Yeah. But if one of them was there, I think it would be an interesting conversation. I will say Fano's my top tackle, but I have some concerns about his power and generally being able to handle power at the NFL level. He still is young. He could fill out better. That's not a super big concern. Maui Noah, I think, might be a guard long term. Just like if you want him to be like a Pro Bowl, All Pro level player, might want to stick him inside. I think he has a solid floor at tackle, but might never be one of the top 10 tackles at his side. So that's a more interesting conversation. But I think both of them probably gone by 21.
I would agree with you. I think that there's a small chance that either are going to be there, especially as we're this early in the process and the way things are looking, knowing that's a premium position. However, if you're the Steelers, certainly don't cross those guys off your board, because I think that there's a lot of value to be had if either of them falls. All right, Shayne, this is an interesting prospect here. And again, one that's unlikely to be there, but if Jermod McCoy, the Tennessee cornerback, falls, missed the entire 2025 season, and so he could fall because of injury stuff. We know how that works sometimes. I thought he was exceptional. If you go back and watch his tape from 2024, I mean, it was very Christian Gonzalez-like, where just he stays in your hip pocket. He's got ball skills. He's fluid, like big. He can work in press man. I think there's a ton to like about this guy. The Steelers have a sneaky need at corner because, like I said, Joey Porter Jr., the only respectable cornerback under contract for the Steelers right now. Maybe they'll go out and make a few moves in free agency to kind of fill that void. I expect them to, actually. But maybe this is a guy that you can pair with Porter long-term and just have a really strong cornerback pairing.
Yeah, if he were to fall, if everything I've heard about him, and I need to watch him still because, again, I'm doing corners here soon. If everything I've heard about him is true, you turn the card in at 21 if he's there. You don't get a lot of corners with the type of traits that he's been talked about having. And I understand the injury is a concern. He didn't play it all last year or whatever it is. If he's healthy and he's as good as people say, I don't see how you don't just draft him if he falls that far.
Yeah, no, I think that that would be beyond tempting if he's still on the board and makes it there because of the season-ending injury that forced him to miss the 2025 season. Excuse me, Shayne, the next name on the list, the number 15th ranked player on Daniel Jeremiah's board, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I did watch quite a bit of his tape at Toledo, and he's good. I mean, he's a really good football player. Rangy, physical, good tackler, got some ball skills, can basically play anywhere in the secondary. Now he's a smaller school player, and would you be okay with that this early in the draft? Kind of reminds me of maybe the safety version of like Quinyon Mitchell a little bit in some ways from a couple years back. I do like him a lot. Would the Steelers consider, though, not just a safety in the first round, but a small school safety? And I think that is the question there.
I don't know if they would, but if, again, he's another guy where if what I'm hearing about him is true, it'd be tempting if the draft falls a certain way, right? And the problem ultimately is, like, is it worth taking a safety at 21 for this team?
Yeah.
Probably not. But at the end of the day, you do have to draft good football players, and he's probably, from all accounts that I've heard, one of the better just football players in the class. And again, I don't care where you play at, good is good. Like Quinyon Mitchell showed that. You used him as an example. It's a good one. Good is good. If he tests the way that he's supposed to test, if he looks the way he's supposed to look on field drills at the combine, like I think he will certainly lock in his first round pedigree for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. That comes down to a philosophy argument there, taking a safety in the first round. If it's not Caleb Downs,
if it's not a true difference maker type,
and that's the thing, because it's not one of the most valuable positions. Though we've seen this Seattle really good safeties that certainly helped them in their Super Bowl run there. The next name on the list, Shayne, is a guy I'm really interested in. I haven't actually talked to you about him yet. Number 16th ranked player on Jeremiah's big board, Kenyon Sadiq. I like his film. I think there's a ton of stuff to work with there. Now, the production wasn't great, had a high drop rate, about 10% this past year in college. To me, I think that there's potential to get like a Trey McBride level player there. The thing is, the Steelers have tight ends, and this would be such a luxury pick, right?
It would be a luxury pick. Also, I think if you draft him this high for the Steelers specifically, he kind of basically has to be the slot receiver only. Like, he has to play that almost all the time.
And he's on the freaks list. I mean, he's a really good athlete.
He probably will play a lot of that in the NFL. Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't think he'd even really be a tight end for you. I think he'd be pretty much just you're just going to be the slot receiver. You're going to catch 70 balls. And maybe that's his fit long term. To me, I liked him. He's definitely the best tight end in this class if we're talking about, potential. But realistically, there's a chance. There's very much a 50-50 shot that he's an Evan Ingram or, like you said, a Trey McBride type in terms of his outcomes. He is as athletic as it gets, but he might just be another Evan Ingram type that's really athletic, but really only puts together every so often for a full season.
All right, Shayne, the next three names on the list is perhaps the most interesting cluster of all right here, because it's three straight wide receivers. Number 17, Jordan Tyson, the Arizona State receiver that we've talked about. Number 18, Denzel Boston, the Washington receiver. And number 19, going from unranked previously out of Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 to number 19 is Omar Cooper Jr., the Indiana wide receiver. I watched a ton of all these guys. I'm going to watch a ton of receivers this year because that's on the dock early in the draft for the Steelers. How would you separate these guys? And I'm a little bit surprised to see them all touching back to back to back. To me, I like Tyson definitely better than Boston and Cooper. But I think there's some intrigue with Cooper there too, as a potential good scheme fit for Mike McCarthy's offense, guy that can do some damage after the catch as well. Just a good natural football player. What are your initial thoughts on these three here?
It's very funny, because this is the exact order they are in my board personally. I have them. Yeah. I have Tyson receiver 4, Boston receiver 5, Omar Cooper Jr. receiver 6. And I will say by the end of the process, I'm very likely going to have Cooper above at least Boston, and maybe if you factor in injury concerns, Tyson, but only because of injury at that point.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Tyson is what we've already talked about. If he is healthy, he's probably a do-it-all, really, really good first round wide receiver. He's probably that. But is he healthy? Will he be healthy? Big questions we don't have answers to right now. Boston, prototypical X wide receiver. I think he's ideally a number 2 though for you. I think he fits mostly into that Cortland Sutton type of player, right? Where if he's your number 1, you can live with it, but we'd rather have him be your wide receiver 2. So that's kind of a tough sell above a guy like Omar Cooper Jr. to me, who I think can be closer to the do-it-all, inside out, really dynamic after the catch, can pepper him with targets because he separates well. He very much feels like the player that is going to be one of the biggest risers, and we've already seen it in his top 50 just now. Like you said, talked about not being ranked to 19th. He's been a huge riser. I kind of thought I was going to be high on him. And then it turns out I was just early to the party because I did receivers really early on. So so it turns out I'm just actually early. That was all. So.
Because I like Cooper's film quite a bit too. And I don't know. He's just rising up really fast, faster than I thought he would. Maybe he's going to finish right in that draft range for the Steelers, at least in terms of the consensus board value. Maybe he'll be right on value instead of it looking like a potential reach pick in terms of the consensus. I find it interesting, though, that all three of these guys are next to each other. And like I said, going back to Tyson, 1 healthy year out of 4 in college. How concerning is that to teams? In 2023, he had an ACL, MCL, PCL injury, big knee injury, caused him to not have a single reception that year early in the season. And so I think that it raises some major red flags at the very least. And maybe it will make him available to Pittsburgh after all. Maybe those medicals are going to get big time flags and he's going to end up being a late first rounder. Like we just don't know. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff we don't have the insight to at this point in time, at least is the medicals. So very interesting group of 3 receivers to keep an eye on though, that could all be in play for Pittsburgh there. Next 2 names on the list, Shayne, number 20 and 21 overall, Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher from Miami, Cassius Howell, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. Not going to spend much time on them because the Steelers are not in the market for an edge rusher. In fact, if they drafted one, I don't know what you do at that position anymore. Not that we shouldn't study these guys. I would encourage you all to watch all the guys.
I have watched both of them. Very fun players, yes, for sure.
They are. Yes, they are. And Hal kind of reminds me of Nick Herbig a little bit.
If you like Cassius Howell, you better hope he's like Nick Herbig. That's all I'm going to say there.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the hope with him is that he's
fun players, but look, we'll breeze past them for the sake of this conversation. Go to number 22, Georgia linebacker CJ Allen, who the Steelers had a formal meeting with at the NFL Combine. Would they take a linebacker that early? I kind of doubt it. And then the next name on the list, number 23, Dylan Thieneman, who I love his film, ball hawking safety. Maybe could be that next like longtime safety in the NFL that just brings ball skills to the position, gets 4 or 5 picks a year. Like I think there's a ton to love about his game. Just a really good player overall. The conversation though with him is positional value. Is it valuable enough to take a safety where the Steelers would be taking him?
Precisely. Yeah, that's the thing. I think, you talk about the edges, unless the Steelers trade 1-2 players at the edge room, which they're not going to, then there's no real reason to have that conversation in the first round, especially. And then safety again, like they're going to be good players. I think they're players that could be drafted where the Steelers are drafting. I just don't think the Steelers should necessarily be the team to do that. Right. That's what it kind of comes down to for me.
Shayne, I just want to mention a few more names on this list that could be potential candidates for the Steelers. Number 25 on Jeremiah's updated big board is Monroe Freeling, the Georgia offensive tackle. I got a chance to watch his game, and I love it. I think there's so much upside
a lot of potential there.
A lot of
Roderick Jones,
he is I know. He is a one-year wonder, like legitimately just a one-year starter, but the very, very toolsy offensive tackle. Lee Hunter, who we talked about here at number 27.
Good player.
I should mention Colton Hood too at number 26. I think that's a little high for Colton Hood.
I'm curious where I land on him, but I've heard the same kind of deal. Yeah.
Keldrick Falk, I'm super intrigued by these type of players. I don't think the Steelers will have any interest, but
that is a 5 tech if I've ever seen one.
He's so long and strong. He's 285 pounds, but he is long. He's one of the youngest players in the draft. Really, really good run defender already. Like though you can sell me on those guys pretty easily.
Yeah. He needs to gain 10 pounds and play 5 tech though, in my opinion. That's his
I think he does
his thing. Yeah.
Yep. I believe he does too. And then you just have him as that full-time interior defender.
Yeah.
29 Caden Proctor, who is just a polarizing offensive tackle. Enormous, man. I'm interested to see what his weight comes in at the NFL Combine.
If he could just weigh like 345.
I know.
I'd be like, I'm in, Caden.
And the problem is we see like with Dawan Jones and a couple of these tackles, Mekhi Becton is like some of these guys have a really hard time keeping that weight off.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be a really important number for him. But he is very intriguing because he's got quality film and he moves really well for his size. And he's 20 years old, only scratching the surface. So
it's intriguing. Well he'd move if he was 345, though. That's the thing.
I know. It's honestly
wasn't going to maybe get hurt because he's 370. That would be awesome.
And then there were reports too, and I've heard some rumblings with Proctor that he gets even bigger during the football offseason, up to like we're pushing like the 400-pound mark, and then it takes him a while early in the season to kind of cut that weight. And so if that's going to be a struggle, something worth monitoring at least. Number 30, a guy that we've talked about here, Clemson cornerback Avion Terrell. I think he's very much in play for the Steelers, and some have him much higher than 30. I know that Trevor Sikkema, PFF's board, has 19, I believe, 18 or 19 right now.
There, 18, 19.
So that's quite a bit higher than where Daniel Jeremiah has him right now. Caleb Lomo, another offensive tackle out of Utah, number 31. They've got a pair of offensive tackles from Utah coming, potential first-round picks this year. And then I'll just mention 2 more names here. Casey Concepcion, the receiver. I know you are high on Shayne. I really like his game.
Big fan.
Only concern I have is the drops.
The hands.
So 19 career drops in 3 seasons. And then Caden McDonald, who the Steelers met with, the defensive tackle. Any other names on that list that we should mention? I think that's Ty Simpson at 40th overall. We got to at least throw that out there. But
most popular mock draft right now, for the Steelers, Ty Simpson. So.
Yeah. All right. So that, I think, pretty much covers everybody that's going to be on that first round radar, barring like an exceptionally high trade up for like Carnell Tate or even Lemon, we already mentioned. So Shayne, let's get to it as we sign off on today's show.
Big one.
Who, 2 months ahead of the NFL draft, the 2026 NFL draft, who would be your predictive first round selection? What do you think the Steelers are going to do in the first round? And I'll let you do it either way. You can say standing pat at 21, or if you really thoroughly think they're going to trade up at least a few spots in the draft like they did in 2023 with all this draft capital, they have 12 picks. You can do that as well. So I'll let you make that decision right now. Who do you think 2 months ahead of time is going to be the Steelers' first round pick?
I think they're going to stand pat. I think that the odds of someone who they really love falling to where they're in tradable range just doesn't seem super likely to me, unless they're higher on one of the guys that isn't quite near the top of most boards. So I think they're going to stick and pick. And I think it's going to be a receiver. And if you made me pick one right now, I do think, and this is a common one, I do think it'll be Denzel Boston.
Oh, come on, man. That was going to be mine. And so
I figured, but
you're going to force me to go a different direction.
I really do think that, like, right now, it makes a lot of sense. They don't have an X. They already have their number one receiver, if you want to call him that.
And Boston's kind of been in that range the whole time. Like he's always been floating around like the 20th to 22nd overall prospect. He's that way on like the consensus board right now as well. Makes a lot of sense. He's got the size that McCarthy likes. You look at the receivers that he's liked. All of his number one receivers over the past decade or so, from Jordy Nelson to Devontae Adams to CeeDee Lamb, he fits that profile now. I don't think he's exceptional after the catch, but he is coming off of a good season. He's good before the catch, good at the catch point, is a pretty nuanced route runner. I think Denzel Boston makes a ton of sense there. And so I would probably also say Boston, because that's where I was going to go with this as well. But for the sake of argument, Shayne, and just to change this up a little bit, let me throw another name out there right now. I will say Omar Cooper Jr. I will say,
I mean, personally, I would love it. So,
and I think that they're going to be okay with the fact that he just has modest production, but he does fit, I think, that's style of offense that McCarthy is at least we're going to assume that he's going to run in Pittsburgh. I think he is kind of a do-it-all football player. He gives you some stuff after the catch. He's tough at the catch point. He can run routes. I think that there's room to grow in that department, but I think that he's at least has enough to work with. And we can argue, is that a good value pick? Is that an on-value pick? Is that a little bit of a reach pick? I think if I'm just going predictive, though, and if I don't say Boston, which I want to, let me say Omar Cooper 2 months ahead of the draft here. What do you guys think? Let us know. Leave us a comment down below. As we're roughly 2 months ahead of the NFL draft, who do you think that pick is going to be? Leave a comment, see if you're right, and we can come back to this and we can revisit that. And you can leave us another comment after the NFL draft and say, see, I told you so. We are excited for this NFL Combine 4-day event here coming up. Make sure you stay with us for all of this. We're going to be breaking down all the coverage nonstop on stillcurtain.com. The Still Curtain podcast premieres on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings at 5 p.m. You can check out Josh Yorsh and Mark Powell's show premiering on they do Tuesdays or Mondays right now.
It's right? So I'll just say for everyone, for those who are looking for the show, because we have seen that kind of dip our second show, that our earlier show. It's supposed to be usually Mondays. It might be kind of fluctuating depending on the availability of everybody, but there should be a show sometime before our main show on Wednesdays every week.
Just refresh Still Curtain podcast.
Yeah, just check it out. There's probably something up. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Shayne on X at Shayne Kubas. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Still Curtain podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also check us out on YouTube, or ask Alexa to play the Still Curtain podcast. And thanks again for listening to the Still Curtain podcast.